galaxy drowning in silence and shadow, where ancient stars have forgotten how to shine, one broken warrior and a stranger with a forgotten past must carry the last spark of hope through the heart of darkness. This is not just a fight for survival. It's a journey to remind the universe that light, once shared, never truly dies. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and show some love with a thumbs up by liking the video. Now, let's move toward this wonderful and powerful story. The sky over the ruined world was a sheet of gray, broken only by cracks of old firelight that shimmered weakly through the ash clouds. The air was dry and quiet, like the planet itself had forgotten how to breathe. Nothing moved, except for one small figure wrapped in a tattered cloak, walking across the cracked earth. Her name was Rhea. She was young, no more than 20, but her eyes looked older than the sun. Scars traced her arms like faded maps, and every step she took echoed against the silence of a world that had once sung with life. Rhea didn't remember how many days it had been since she'd seen another person, someone real, not a voice from the shadows. The Devourers had made sure of that. They came from the sky years ago like smoke with teeth, swallowing entire cities and leaving behind only silence. People used to fight. Soldiers, leaders, scientists, they all tried. And they all fell. Now Rhea walked alone, holding on to the last thing she had left, a broken blade that once belonged to her mother. She didn't know what she was looking for. Maybe a place the darkness hadn't touched. Maybe just a reason to keep walking. That reason found her first. She saw him near the remains of a collapsed radio tower, just a dark figure standing still under the flickering metal frame. Rhea froze. Her fingers wrapped tight around the hilt of her blade. She crouched low, moved slowly, eyes never leaving the stranger. Most survivors by now had gone mad, their minds chewed up by the whispers of the Devourers. And the rest? Not friendly, but he didn't move. He just stood there, staring up at the tower like he was listening to something. Rhea took another step forward and the man turned. "I thought I was alone," he said, voice rough but calm. Rhea didn't respond. She stepped into the light just enough to be seen and pointed her blade at him. "Don't come any closer." He held up his hands, empty. His jacket was torn, his boots worn, and his face was tired but steady. "Name's Kale," he said. "I'm not looking for trouble." Rhea didn't lower the weapon. "Everyone says that before the trouble starts." Kale gave a tired smile. "Fair enough." A long silence hung between them. Then, from deep below the ground, a rumble began. It was soft at first, like thunder underwater, then louder, closer. Rhea's eyes widened. She didn't need to ask. She knew that sound. The Devourers were near. Kale turned, scanning the hills. "They found us." "No," Rhea said, stepping back. "They found you." Before Kale could answer, the ground split, open behind the tower. A wave of black mist poured out, swirling and writhing like it had a mind of its own. In the center of it, a shape began to rise. Long limbs, no face. A whispering voice like wind through bones. "You are alone." Rhea didn't wait. She ran, her boots pounding the cracked stone. But instead of heading away, she ran toward the hills, toward the forgotten ruins she'd passed days before. Kale followed without question, close behind her. They ducked under a fallen bridge, crawled through a rusted pipe, and burst into a narrow hallway lined with shattered screens and tangled wires. It was an old bunker, long dead, but it was shelter. Inside they stopped. Rhea turned on Kale, her blade at his throat. "What are you carrying?" Kale reached into his coat and slowly pulled out a small stone, no bigger than a fist. It glowed, faintly blue, pulsing like a quiet heartbeat. "What is that?" she asked. "I don't know," he answered. "But it reacts when the Devourers get close. I think it's some kind of light core, maybe a seed. My sister found it before the end." Rhea stared at it, her breath quickening. "That light, it's not from here." Kale nodded. "It's not from Earth either. It's older." Another rumble shook the ground. Dust fell from the ceiling. The bunker creaked like it remembered fear. "We can't stay here," Kale said. Rhea looked at the glowing stone, then at him. Everything in her said to run, to survive alone like she always had. But something about the way Kyle looked at her, not with fear or pity, but hope, made her stop. "I don't trust you," she said. "Good," he replied. "Neither do I." She smirked, despite herself. "Follow me. There's a vault not far from here. The old world called it a shelter. Maybe it still is." They moved again quickly and quietly through the ruins of what used to be a city of dreams. Along the way, Rhea caught herself glancing at Kale more than once. He was strange, quiet, but not afraid. Not yet. They reached the vault by nightfall. It stood buried in a hillside, hidden behind broken statues and thick vines. The entrance was sealed tight, but Kale held up the lightstone. It pulsed brighter, and the doors opened with a low hiss. Inside, lights flickered on, slow and unsure. As they stepped in, a voice echoed from deep within the vault, mechanical, calm. "Welcome back, Kale. Protocol reactivation in progress." Rhea's eyes snapped to him. "What did it just say?" Kale stared ahead, pale and confused. "I don't know." And somewhere far beneath their feet, something ancient began to wake. The vault was cold, not the kind of cold that came from ice or wind, but the kind that crept into bones and settled behind your eyes. Rhea walked slowly, her hand on her blade, eyes scanning the walls. Old lights flickered as they moved deeper into the underground, halls powered by something she didn't understand. The air smelled like dust and old metal. Behind her, Kale carried the glowing lightstone in his hand. It pulsed gently with every step, guiding them through the quiet darkness. Neither of them spoke. There was too much between them now. Rhea didn't trust this place, and she still wasn't sure about Kyle. One moment, he was just a man with tired eyes. Now he was walking through a vault that somehow knew his name. She glanced back at him again. He looked just as confused as she felt, but also strangely calm, like he had expected this somehow. They stopped in front of a door with a circular panel beside it. As Kale stepped forward, the panel lit up and scanned him silently. Then the door slid open with a slow mechanical sound. Inside, the room was round with a high ceiling and a glowing platform in the center. Screens lined the walls, all cracked or dark except for one. A voice echoed from the center. It was smooth, almost human, but clearly artificial. "Identity match confirmed. Welcome, Kyle. Vault 17 protocol resumed." Kyle looked around slowly. "What is this place?" the voice replied. "This is a memory vault, one of many across the old systems. You were brought here for preservation, not destruction." Rhea stepped closer to Kale, her voice sharp. "Preservation? Of what?" The lights shifted. Images began to appear on the walls, blurry at first, then clearer. Fleets of ships flying through bright skies, planets blooming with light, people of all kinds working together, smiling, building. Then suddenly fire, smoke, the black mist of the devourers swallowing cities, stars, whole worlds. Screams echoed from the walls as the memories played. Kale backed up, breathing heavily. I don't remember this," the voice answered. "You wouldn't. The protocol was not meant to preserve memory, only potential." "What does that mean?" Rhea asked. Before the voice could respond, the vault trembled. A whisper filled the air, soft and cruel. It spoke, not through speakers but inside their minds. "You are not alone." Rhea spun toward the door. "They found us." Kale's eyes locked onto the stone in his hand. It had gone dark. The lights in the vault dimmed. The images faded. The voice spoke again, this time faster. "You must leave. The Watcher is near." "The what?" Kyle asked. But Rhea already knew. She'd heard the name before, in quiet rumors passed around broken camps. The Watcher was different from the others. It didn't destroy, it listened, it waited, and then it spoke to you in the voices of the ones you'd lost. The door sealed behind them as they left the memory room. The halls were darker now. Every light buzzed like a dying insect. They moved quickly, but the whisper followed. Kale froze. "Did you hear that?" Rhea nodded slowly. "Don't listen." But it was too late. The voice came again, this time clearer. "Kyle. Brother. It's me. It's Mira." Kyle stopped walking. His hands shook. "No, she's gone." The voice answered sweetly. "Only in your memories. I'm still here. You left me." Rhea grabbed his arm and pulled him forward. "It's lying, that's all it does." Kyle tried to shake his head to focus, but the voice kept talking, twisting old words and childhood memories into guilt. The shadows thickened. Something moved behind them, a shape that didn't belong to the world. A form made of nothing except what you feared most. Rhea drew her blade, and its faint blue light cut through the darkness just enough to hold it back. "Move," she whispered, not to Kale but to herself. They stumbled into another chamber, this one filled with strange machines and walls lined with more of the glowing symbols. At the far end was a control panel. Kyle stared at it, blinking fast. "I know this," he said. "I've seen this before. In my dreams." He stepped forward and the machine lit up at his touch. Symbols shifted, rearranged themselves, and then a map appeared, a star system marked with a small glowing point. "What is that?" Rhea asked. Kale's voice was quiet. "The silent ring. That's where we're supposed to go." The Watcher's whisper grew louder, angrier. The shadows surged toward them. Kale pressed a final button and the floor opened beneath the console. A tunnel led back toward the surface. "Run," he said. They didn't look back. They ran through the tunnel as the vault screamed behind them. Not in sound, but in pain and memory. When they finally reached the surface, the sky was darker than before, and a storm brewed in the distance. But the stone in Kyle's hand began to glow again. He looked at Rhea. "I remember something. Not everything, but enough." She nodded. "Then we move, before it follows us again." They walked side by side into the rising wind, two lights in the ashes of a forgotten world. And far behind them, in the vault, the Watcher waited, listening for the next sound of hope it could try to destroy. The desert stretched for miles in every direction. Sand swept across the ground in sharp winds, cutting into Kale's face as he pushed forward. His coat was torn, and his lips were cracked from the heat, but he kept walking. Behind him, Rhea followed, her steps slower now. The vault had taken something from both of them, not just energy, but peace. The Watcher's voice still echoed faintly in their minds, even though they were far away. It clung to their memories like smoke. They had been walking for 2 days toward the silent ring. According to the map, it wasn't far now. Just beyond, a canyon filled with broken machines and the wreckage of old skyships. Rhea didn't talk much. She had barely slept, and when she did, she woke in cold sweat, blade gripped tight in her hand. But Kale had changed too. Since the vault, he seemed to move with more purpose. The way he held the lightstone, now glowing brighter, was different. Like it no longer scared him. As the sun began to set behind the rust-colored mountains, they reached the edge of the canyon. What lay below was something neither of them expected. There, rising out of the cracked earth, was a tall structure shaped like a ring, huge and weathered, but still humming with low energy. The silent ring. And, beside it, huddled in the shade of an old engine part, was a small figure. Kale was the first to notice. He stepped carefully toward the child, hands open, voice soft. "Hey, are you okay?" The child looked up. It was a girl, no older than 10. Her clothes were covered in dust, her face pale. But what caught their eyes was the glowing object she held in her hands, another lightstone. Rhea stepped forward quickly. "Where did you get that?" The girl didn't speak. Instead, she slowly held out the stone. It pulsed once, then again in rhythm with Kale's. The two stones began to glow together like they were calling to one another. "I think she's like me," Kale said quietly. "I don't know how, but she's connected." They set up camp, near the silent ring, lighting a small fire and placing old metal sheets around it to block the wind. The girl didn't say her name, and Kale and Rhea didn't push. She simply sat close, drawing in the sand with her finger. Stars, circles, strange symbols that looked oddly familiar. Kale watched her for a while. Then he spoke. "When I was a kid, my sister used to draw just like that. She thought the stars were stories waiting to be told." Rhea glanced at him. "Do you remember her now?" "More than I did," he said. "Not everything, but enough to miss her." Silence settled again. The air felt heavier near the ring, like the ground itself was holding its breath. Eventually, Kyle stood and walked to the base of the structure. He placed his hand on the surface. A light traveled along the metal, rising up the sides of the ring like veins awakening. Suddenly, machines within the ring roared to life. A panel slid open in the center, revealing a terminal covered in dust and strange markings. Kyle stepped back as the child stood and approached. Without hesitation, she touched the terminal. A soft voice filled the air. It was gentle and old, like a breeze that remembered the past. Two sparks, finally together. Torchbearers. "Welcome." Rhea looked at Kyle. "Torchbearers?" The voice continued. "You were chosen not for your strength, but for your light. You carry the last hope of those who once stood here." Images flickered in the sky above them, memories of a battle long ago. Ships firing against a wave of darkness. Warriors standing side by side, holding lightstones high. And then silence as the light faded and was buried under time. Kale stepped forward. "What are we supposed to do?" "Restore the fire," the voice replied. "But beware, the hollow star has awakened." At that moment, the ground rumbled. Far in the distance, a shape began to rise from beneath the sands. Black, massive, and alive. The hollow star. It was not a star at all, but a machine twisted by the darkness, its shape like a scar on the sky, moving with purpose toward the ring. Rhea pulled her blade, eyes fixed on the growing shadow. "We don't have long." Kyle turned to the terminal. A new light appeared, coordinates and symbols spinning fast. A final location, a place where the light must be carried. He memorized the path, then shut the panel. "We need to move." The child reached for his hand. Kyle took it without question. As they ran from the ring, the hollow star roared behind them, its voice deep and full of hunger. The night sky burned with firelight, and the ground split beneath their feet. But still, the lightstones glowed. Kyle didn't look back. He had no time for fear. Only forward, only together, because now he knew the truth. The darkness could chase them, it could whisper, it could even wound them. But the light refused to sleep. The wind screamed as the hollow star moved through the sky, dragging darkness behind it like a torn cloak. Its massive body hovered above the desert, casting a long shadow over the land. Kale ran, the child's small hand in his, while Rhea followed close behind with her blade drawn. They didn't speak. There was no time. Behind them, the silent ring cracked and groaned, lights flickering wildly, as if warning the world of what had awakened. They reached the edge of a cliff where a rusted shuttle lay buried beneath sand and rock. Kyle dropped to his knees and began pulling away debris. "This thing has to fly," he muttered. Rhea joined him, her hands moving fast, despite the cuts and bruises on her arms. The child stood silently nearby, her eyes still glowing with the lightstone's pulse. As Kyle forced open the side panel of the shuttle, dust flew out, and a small control light blinked red. The system was half dead, but not beyond hope. With trembling fingers, Kyle tapped the console. Sparks flew, and the screen buzzed. After a long pause, it lit up with a single message. "Partial power, launch possible. Coordinates required." Kyle looked back at the child. She stepped forward, holding up the light stone. It pulsed once, then sent a signal through the air. The shuttle responded instantly, uploading the final location, the heart of the darkness. The place the ancient voice had shown them. a region beyond known space where the last war had ended and the first light had died. They climbed aboard, the engines whining as Cale started the launch. The ship shook and groaned, but it rose into the air, wobbling like an old bird remembering how to fly. Below them, the hollow star began to turn, its many glowing eyes locking onto them. Rhea strapped in, gripping her seat tightly. "If that thing hits us, we're done." Cale didn't answer. He stared straight ahead, guiding the shuttle toward the black sky. As they rose higher, the stars around them began to fade. Time slowed, space twisted. The world behind them disappeared, swallowed by smoke and silence. Then everything went dark. When the light returned, they were somewhere else, floating in stillness. In front of them was a sphere the size of a moon, pulsing with shadow. Its surface was covered in strange patterns like screaming faces frozen in stone. Around it drifted broken ships, lost pieces of ancient wars, and shattered hopes. This was the heart, the source. Cale stood, legs shaking. This is where it ends. They docked inside a narrow tunnel, the walls pulsing with dark veins. As they stepped out, the air grew cold and heavy, pressing against their skin like deep water. The child walked beside Cale, her face calm, her steps steady. Rhea stayed close, sword ready. She didn't trust what waited in the shadows. They moved through the dark halls deeper and deeper until they reached a wide-open chamber. There, in the center, stood a throne made of bones and ash, and on it sat a figure cloaked in black, its face hidden, its voice both male and female, young and old. It spoke without moving. "You bring the last flame to my home, brave, but foolish." Cale stepped forward. "You're afraid. That's why you whisper. That's why you hide." The figure stood, shadows curling around it like smoke. "You think hope can stop what's already begun?" Rhea raised her blade. "It already has." The figure laughed, and the chamber exploded into motion. Shadows swirled, forming creatures with claws and teeth. Cale was pulled back, the child slipping from his grip. She stood frozen, staring at the throne as the ground shook beneath her. Rhea fought hard, her blade glowing with each strike. But the shadows were endless. Kyle reached the center of the room where a glowing pedestal waited, shaped like a star. He touched it, and the lightstone in his hand merged with it. The chamber filled with golden light. The shadows screamed. The dark figure roared, charging forward. It formed copies of them, Kyle, Rhea, even the child, all twisted, all cruel. Kyle faltered. He saw his sister again, reaching out, her face full of pain. "You left me." "No," he whispered. "I carried you." The child reached for him then, her voice soft but sure. "We do it together." Their hands touched the light. A wave of pure energy burst from the pedestal. The copies vanished. The dark figure howled, its form breaking into pieces. Light filled every crack, every space the darkness had taken. The chamber shook. Rhea grabbed Cale's arm. "It's collapsing." They ran, the child between them, as the walls crumbled and the light rose higher and higher, swallowing the shadows. They made it back to the shuttle just in time. As they launched into space, the heart behind them shattered, releasing a golden wave that spread across the stars. For a long time, no one spoke. Then the child smiled. Kyle leaned back in his seat. The stars were returning, slowly, one by one, like candles relit in the dark. Rhea looked out the window. "What now?" Kyle looked at them both, his voice quiet. "Now we build where the light can grow again." Far below, on a planet long forgotten, new grass began to grow. The sky cleared. The silence broke. And somewhere, in the quiet places between stars, the light remembered how to shine.